Hello, my name is Danielle Muscente, and today I'll be discussing the underfunding of public grade schools in America. There are many factors which influence the amount of money given to public schools each year. The one issue I will be discussing today is the connection between underfunded schools and low-income locations. While the federal government gives some support for schools with concentrated poverty levels, low-income communities more often than not have less local tax revenue to put into education. That leaves state funding left to address the greater needs of districts with concentrated poverty. Some states, along with individual cities and counties, do this better than others. This means that some fund their schools by distributing more resources to districts with higher levels of poverty. Many states who have higher funding don't necessarily address equity. Very little money is given to schools in low-income areas due to these income tax levels. Many of the underfunded public schools in America have a predominantly non-white student body and are located in lower-income areas across the country. Through this situation, we can see the systemic racism which is rooted in our country. Many public grade schools in low-income areas are in need of more funding for special programs, including funding for ELA teachers and extracurricular activities. Children who live in high-poverty areas thrive in extracurricular programs and are often shown making mental and behavioral improvements as a result. ELA programs give children a way to learn English and have the same opportunities as English-speaking students. A lack of state funding put towards these programs takes away the opportunity for kids to find a passion or an enjoyable hobby. Sometimes these children have bad home lives and find joy in a family-like connection through extracurricular activities. To further prove my argument, I decided to interview Allison Kelly. She is a teacher at Beverly Hills Middle School, which is located in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. She's a reading intervention teacher for grades 6 through 8. Kelly explained that 96% of the student population is made up of students of color. Black students made up roughly 91% of that count. Her school itself is located in a low-income area, but the entire district's demographic is not considered low income. Allison Kelly has always noticed that the location of her school and its racial and ethnic enrollment rates were a factor to underfunding. She explained that the poverty levels are factors in the inequity. The federal government gives some support for schools with concentrated poverty, but low-income communities more often than not have less local tax revenue to put into education. That leaves only state funding to address the greater needs of districts with concentrated poverty. The Upper Darby School District itself is underfunded by the state by $16.3 million, which is about $5,500 per student. Although public grade schools are struggling with major underfunding, there are always ways that this issue can be resolved. For example, state government officials should mandate property taxes to increase in order to provide their students more funding. If more tax dollars are allocated towards funding, schools can provide students with the services they need to survive and succeed. These very students are the backbone of our society, and their journey to the future should be one that is easy and triumphant. Once students are provided with basic necessities to ensure their success, graduation rates in low-income cities will increase as well. This would encourage parents across the United States to trust in the value and effectiveness of the public schools again, instead of spending thousands of dollars for private school education. The children should be receiving a top-notch education at a progressive public school and should not be spending thousands of dollars. Regarding the amount of schools' fundings, all districts should be providing the same amount of money to every school. It is unfair that those in impoverished communities do not have the same opportunities as the middle to high-class children. A funding program could be set up by federal government to ensure that every public grade school in the United States is given the proper funds for their students. On a federal level, funding needs to be divided equally between all programs such as education, military, agriculture, and many more. Education is the most important privilege our country has, and it should not be taken for granted by government officials. Hopefully, by bringing light to this topic, there can be a substantial amount of change. Every child deserves the right to receive an education, no matter what their financial situation is. Thank you for listening.